Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark. It is Monday, November 25th, our final show of November, and we have one whole Canucks game to talk about, but four at some crazy times to preview. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are we doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Parker. I hope you are well as well. At least we are going to be talking about a win. And there's actually, for a lazy early Saturday afternoon, like early evening game against the lowly Ottawa Senators, a lot of storylines, a lot of interesting plays and developments that we can break down. So that's kind of cool, at least to give us something to talk about tonight.
Yeah, it was nice that they got the win. They played it, pretty well. They took a lead and they held on to it. They got under Ottawa's skin. It felt like they broke the Ottawa Senators, frankly. They were getting in their own heads. Brady Tkachuk, lost the plot a little bit. No, the Canucks played well. I mean, you just look at the power play numbers, right? The Canucks had 6 power plays in that game and scored fewer power play goals than Ottawa did because they went 2 for 3.
On the sympathy scale, do you have any sympathy or even empathy or any where you want for Travis Green? Like, do you like him? Do you care for him? Do you actually want him to do well, just not against us? Or do you actually not care?
I think I like the guy. I just don't know if he's got it,
Yeah.
Because it's a very similar sort of vibe to when he was in Vancouver and very similar, roster constructions where it's like this team, if they put it all together, might be able to make some sort of push, right? They might be able to compete for a playoff spot. They might be able to do something. The exact same story last year, right? I remember the Canucks played against Ottawa probably a similar time of year last year, maybe a little bit later. And It was a very similar storyline. It was like, oh, the Canucks are off to this hot start. They're doing great. And Ottawa, at the beginning of the season, Canucks were like 50%. Ottawa was like 50%. And then Ottawa went on a tail dive and the Canucks did absolutely fine. So it really feels like Ottawa's just in this same boat over and over again. And I don't know how much of it is roster issues. I don't know how much of it is Travis Green. I don't follow the Sens that closely, but it doesn't feel like they're the team that they were hoping to be once again.
Great point. And that's a really good point, actually. And I know we've talked about this. When are one of those 3 teams, Buffalo, Ottawa, or Detroit, right? All those kind of sucky teams in the Atlantic. When's one of them going to break through? I remember the last 2 seasons. We think that one of them is going to break through. Detroit had that good summer 2 years ago. It didn't work. Buffalo, they didn't capitalize on Tage Thompson's amazing year 2 years ago, and they got Rasmus Dahlin and all these good players. I don't know. Maybe we're going to be waiting forever.
Maybe. I'm okay with it not being Detroit. They've had more than enough success in their history to last quite a while. But for a team like Ottawa, they were sort of like, not really my second team growing up because I didn't really have a second team, but they were the team that I sort of like didn't hate at all. I liked guys like Heatley and Alfredson and Spezza. But they've just never really put it together, right? They had that one little cup run, like, was it 7 years ago or something? And then immediately back to being irrelevant. And it's unfortunate for them. And luckily, I like what we're doing where we had some really bad years and now we're having hopefully a bunch of really good years, hopefully.
Right.
Although this one's been a bit shaky to start, but I've got a good feeling that things are going to turn themselves around here. We have Besser coming back. Demko seems close. Like the Canucks are getting healthy right now. Like, the bunch of injuries that they've had, unfortunately, Besser, how many games has Besser missed at this point? Like 8 or 9, it feels like.
Yep. Yeah. November. Starting November.
And obviously Demko has been missing games since April. Was it March? Yeah, it was in March that he got hurt. He's been out for,
he played
months.
10
months. 10 months, is that 8 months? Math is hard. Guys like Forbert seemingly coming back. So there's a lot of positives, I think. And just looking at this road trip, which we're going to preview, a few winnable games.
Yeah. We say that all the time. As much as Ottawa annoyed me, as Shiraz said, at least they beat Calgary tonight, so that helps. Calgary, the surprise of the Pacific, but I like it when Calgary loses.
Oh, always. Unless it's to Edmonton. I think that's true. That's my tier list of who I'd prefer to win. I mean, right now, Edmonton is sort of just hanging in there. There's really. It's a big mushy middle in the Pacific right now, and the Canucks are right in the heat of it. Right, you've got Calgary at 12-7-3, so that's a good record. But no one really expects them to be second in the Pacific by the end of the season.
I hope not. Yeah.
The Kings 11-7-3, so essentially the same record. The Oilers at 11-9-2. The Canucks at 10-6-3. The Kraken at 11-10-3. So there's 5 teams there within 4 points of each other. And then you have the top, which is Vegas at 14-6-2. And then you've got the usual suspects at the bottom with Anaheim and San Jose. Although San Jose is going to win tonight because they're taking it to LA. Thanks to Matt and Celebrini.
Good.
6-2 right now.
And I know I always make a comment of this, and we've talked about this. It's nice to see the Vancouver with the fewest games played as opposed to having 6 more games played than everyone else. So we have the games in hand. And so it's kind of nice that we can look at the points percentage as opposed to the points. We're in 3rd in points percentage and if we win our games outright, we actually leapfrog Calgary. Vegas is the only team we can't catch even by winning all of our games in hand because Vegas, got to give them credit. They've had a great start to the season.
And that's going to change this week, right? 5 games in the next 8 days.
If
you got it. Tomorrow, Tuesday to Tuesday, essentially. They play back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. Then they go Friday, Sunday, Tuesday before having a couple days off on their travel home. And then it's really just games every other day until Christmas. So the Canucks had a very slow start to their schedule, which is ideal for a team that's missing their starting goaltender. And ideal for a team who had, their best goal scorer go out due to a head injury. Yeah. So, as everyone gets healthy, now it's sort of time for them to get in that rhythm. And then, of course, that rhythm will be disrupted at Christmas, and then we'll see where they go from there.
And I get that we did our show on Tuesday night as opposed to Monday because of my work commitment. But what a weird schedule, huh? We're wrapping up basically 1 game again, and then we'll have 4 before the next show. It's weird stuff.
Yeah, 1 game in the past week, which was the Canucks and Senators, which we'll talk about briefly. Again, it was... Yeah. Just on Saturday here at 4:00. Canucks beat the Senators pretty well and then made it interesting at the very end. I know neither of us watched the 3rd period,
Correct.
Which is great. So we only have 2 periods of real perspective on this one. And then, of course, we watched that clip of the Canucks passing the puck around in their own zone for 2 minutes and drawing another penalty.
Quite impressive.
Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. So this was all about this whole game. I know we're going to go through it, but the whole game was about the top line. I know Bluger snuck in a goal there, but it was all DeBrusk, PD, and at least in terms of goal scoring, DeBrusk, PD, and Sherwood, which was great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So first period, we can talk about really quickly here. Fairly even, really analytically, Ottawa had the edge. They also had, I think, they had a 5-minute power play, which helps. Obviously, this one, the real big drama in the first period is this Quinn Hughes ejection for boarding on Josh Norris.
What a jerk!
This one was interesting in real time because you see, Norris sort of cut back and Hughes does a quick cut to catch up to him, and it's a cross check to the numbers if you want to break it down to its simplest form, but there's so much nuance in. How many board battles do you see behind the net where a guy cuts back and the defender stops and gives him a shove in the back, right?
Yep.
It happens 2 dozen times a game, right?
Yes.
But Norris happened to be, I guess, a little bit off balance. Hughes didn't push him that hard, and Norris went down and cut his face on the dasher. Like, it's a really unfortunate place for your head to end up is right on the ledge of the boards. And so they call it five in a game on the ice so they can review it. But the problem is if you call it a major and there's an injury, the review can't do too much, right? You can confirm, okay, well, that was boarding. We're not going to take the penalty off the board. Yeah. Well, he's injured. We have to call it 5 in a game, even though it's not like he got injured because he went headfirst into he had a head injury or a neck injury or something from going into the boards hard. It was because he cut his face on the boards.
Right. So Parker is the nuance, and we could, when you look at the hit, you can see guys hit guys harder than that in practice. Like they just give him a little shove, right? Yeah. But you're right. Norris was off balance, and he's not the biggest guy ever. And then right where he fell onto his knees, his head hit the edge. So I get all that. It was like the worst circumstances possible. So help me explain the nuance. The nuance is they called 5 and then he got the game because of the cut, or they called 5 in a game and then it was confirmed by the cut?
So for boarding, there's no 5-minute major. It's 5 in a game. The
Oh,
game's
okay.
carried automatically with an injury. So it's
Gotcha.
since he was injured and since they called it 5, he gets kicked out. Um,
Right.
like you look at that play. It's like, yeah, that's a textbook 2 minutes for boarding, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or 2 minutes for 2 minutes.
Right.
Call it 2 minutes for cross checking. Same thing. I don't
Right.
care. It's a two. You call it 2 minutes for roughing if you wanted to. It's a
Yeah.
2 minute penalty. It's
Right.
not it's by no means I think a 5 in a game. And I was looking around because obviously we're biased, right? That's
Yeah.
that's part of being a fan. That's a fun part of being a fan. But even just going over on like Twitter and on Reddit and just like scrolling through everyone's like, that's soft, like
Yeah.
league wide. So yeah, it was nice that the Canucks were able to get the win. Quinn Hughes got a really big rest, if you think about it, right? He hadn't since a week ago, which was last Tuesday. He has had 5 minutes of ice time.
Yeah. 5 minutes of
So
ice time.
that's 2.5 minutes less than Max Sasson.
That's true. And Parker, you know how we know that it wasn't a 5 in a game? Because either E. McIntyre or Dan Murphy tweeted today that Quinn Hughes and Josh Norris are buddies. They were college roommates, all those things. And they apologized to each other. So, of course, you could see Quinn Hughes apologizing. Sorry, I didn't mean to push you in the boards. I didn't mean to cut your face. But the fact that Josh Norris probably apologized that I'm sorry that I was in that position for you to get kicked out. Like the fact that he's actually apologizing back to Quinn Hughes, that's all you need to know. That was not a 5 in a game.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. It happens though. Luckily, it didn't cost them. And yeah, props to Phil Hronik though. He had a really good game. Ends up with a +3 on the night with an assist, which is excellent.
Wow.
Eric Brandstrom played 21 minutes, looked totally fine. Tyler Myers played 22 minutes. Susie played 20 and was a +2. Like he was an overall good night defensively. Of course, there's the 2 goals late, one being on the power play. Two of the 3 Sens goals were power play goals, right?
Yeah.
And that's just an advantage that you're going to get. So the plus minus doesn't get hurt too much when that's the case, though.
Yeah, and we didn't get to see Parker the full experimentation because this was the first time it was Hughes Hronik and not Susie Myers. It was actually Brandstrom Myers to start the game, and then Susie on the third pairing. But because of the quick exit to Quinn Hughes, all those 3 ideal combos were thrown away anyway. So maybe tomorrow we see a full game of Brandstrom and Myers, which is good. Susie's been struggling, obviously.
Yeah, they need to make some sort of adjustment back there.
Yeah.
The Susie Myers pairing has been one of the they've had some of the toughest deployment in the league. They've had so many D zone starts compared to most other, especially compared to Hughes Hronik, right? Hughes Hronik are starting like 65% of the shifts in the offensive zone. Susie and Myers are closer to 40, right? So they're definitely getting the harder tasks, but the eye test is where that struggle is, right? You can see clearly that they're struggling in their own zone. So I think a little shuffle might do some good, and I think it's. Brandstrom's also been very sheltered minutes wise, right? Lots of O-zone starts, and he's looked great in the offensive zone, but this is a team that has made it clear that they're going to probably be trading for a defenseman sooner than later, right? They know that their defense needs some work, but I think they're going to want to get a look at, okay, what is Eric Brandstrom for us, right?
Yeah.
Are we comfortable with him playing 20 minutes a night in our top 4, right? Which seems like a big ask for a guy that was a throw in on a trade that's bounced around to his third team, but he's looked pretty good. So I say throw him to the wolves a little bit. Let's see what he is when he's uncomfortable, and see if that's a guy that you can utilize. And maybe that makes it a little bit easier, right? Maybe you're saying, okay, now we need to get, if you're really comfortable with him there and you're saying, okay, now if we can get a right shot D-man to go with Brandstrom and that makes Susie and Myers our third pair, now we're talking about something maybe a little more interesting. And again, it's a tall order, but if it's something that they can pull off, that would be a big boon for the team.
Yeah. So you mentioned Philip Hronik had to step up both in terms of minutes. He obviously took Quinn Hughes' spot on power play 1, and that first goal was him to Garland before DeBrusk tipped it in. It was a good play by Hronik.
Yeah. No, it was a good game for the Canucks all around. They take a 1-0 lead into the intermission, which is great after having a 5-minute penalty. DeBrusk with a goal there, just sort of just a shot,
nice
or a
deflection
tip on the shot from Garland. So the Canucks carry that 1-0 lead in. Really nice tip. Höglander gets a penalty, which, Nils Höglander has struggled quite a bit to start this season, and feels like he could be trade bait potentially.
That's crazy.
With how things are starting.
With his new contract.
Scores.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I still think it's a fine contract. I think that he has a lot of potential, but then 2 more goals from the Canucks in the second period. You get a Bluger goal on just a quick little shot on the rush in with Sasson. So Sasson gets his first point. Smart play. Sasson just sort of burns his guy wide, button hook, play it to Bluger, who's coming down, and he's got a good look through a screen of Heinen and a defender.
Yeah.
And then you get that DeBrusk goal a few minutes later, where Sherwood plays it to him, and he makes a real nice move. Just a little 2-on-1. It's a textbook play. If you're getting a pass on if you're on your strong side on a 2-on-1 and you get that pass across, making the move back to the other side, it's so hard for goalies, right? Because Sherwood makes that pass, goalie now has to move to his right. And keep in mind, goalie's always thinking the shot first because D-man's supposed to cover that pass. That pass gets through, the goalie has to push off to get over, which means DeBrusk can just cut back to that other post. It's a textbook move. Canucks have a 3-1 lead after 2.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to the second assist on both of those goals because you remember on the Bluger goal, Myers did a great job of intercepting a pass, taking a small hit to make the play on the boards. Yep. And you're right, Sasson to Bluger. And then Pettersson plays the puck to himself off the boards and then knocks it off the boards to Sherwood. Ottawa defenseman makes a horrible play, and then it becomes a 2-on-1, as you mentioned, that DeBrusk finishes it off. So shout outs to Myers and PD for the second assist on those 2 goals because those plays don't happen without those 2 guys.
And second assists count just as much as first assists.
Yes.
And then the Canucks get another one. It's Kiefer Sherwood. This is just a sort of a zone entry. Pettersson, I feel like he probably should shoot here, coming in down the slot with 4 guys around him. Plays it over. And DeBrusk is just able to find the puck, swing it towards the net, and Sherwood's able to sort of jam it home. Sherwood's got 6 on the year. He also had another 10 hits in this game.
That's crazy.
Kiefer Sherwood played. He was a second high minute man up front. He played 20 minutes and 17 seconds in this game, just 40 seconds less than Connor Garland, who was the high minute man.
Wow. Well, what a revelation. And I heard them talking on the radio that let's be honest, no one expected Sherwood to be this good. We all expected him to be good, bottom 6 guys, serviceable. Man, he was annoying to play against. I remember him checking Quinn Hughes at every chance he could get in the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. But then for him to be this good and to be thrust into not just a top 6, i.e. second line, but a top line role and actually thriving on it, Parker, and not just kind of being a liability, it's good. And he might not even be in that position by the end of this road trip. Let's be honest, but it's awesome. It's awesome. And it's
a 52-point pace. 52-point pace right now, and like a 8,000 hit pace. Actually, he's probably close to he's probably getting on average 7 hits a game or something.
Yeah,
right?
He's at 100. Yeah, he's at 145 hits in 20 games. Yeah, exactly, 7 hits.
So he's gonna get 600 hits this year. What was the record that Lauzon set last year?
I don't know, but 600 hits sounds so crazy.
383 is the record. Now the stat only goes back to 0506, I want to say.
Right.
But still, to go to, if he can break that record by 100, that is crazy.
Yeah. He's not going to keep this up, is he? Isn't he going to hurt himself? I don't want him to, but that can't be good for your own body.
It's funny because he's not the biggest guy, right? 6 foot 194, right?
Yeah,
so he's he's not, he's not a train out there running guys over, but he's also not hitting guys extremely hard, but he's just being a nuisance. Every chance he gets, he just goes and finishes his check every single time. And he's getting rewarded for it, right? He's causing turnovers. He's got his highest time on ice per game of his career. He's halfway, he had 27 points last year. He's got 12 already this year. He's halfway almost to his point total of last year in, less than a third of the games. So if he can keep this up, it's fantastic.
Okay, so you brought us up to the 4-1 goal, Sherwood cleaning up the garbage, and then it's a delayed penalty for the Canucks, so they have possession. Lankinen goes to the bench, And Parker, I was driving to an event that I was emceeing that night. So I hear Brendan Batchelor on the radio, and he starts off, Parker, by saying, okay, so expect the Canucks to rag the puck a little bit, kill off some of the time because there's 12 minutes left and they're up by 3 goals. And then you can hear him and Landon Ferraro getting more incredulous, like, I don't think I've ever seen this before. Ottawa is not putting any pressure on the Canucks players. They keep going out to center and coming back behind their net. And then by the time it's said and done, Brady Tkachuk breaks the stick on Phil Hronek's back, and the Ottawa Senators don't touch it for 1:45 or whatever. What? That was crazy. It was so crazy.
They played a perfect trap, and Ottawa just felt like they just quit. Like, it really felt like they were just like, they're like, I don't want to go chase this puck down, and like, yeah, it was actually sad to watch. Very well played by the Canucks.
Yeah.
And I even want to say, like, remember their first power play they scored on, like, without Quinn Hughes, they looked really good. I felt like when they didn't have Quinn Hughes, they were like, oh, we have to be a little more alert and make plays.
Right.
And I think that even on that 1:45, like, everyone
Yep.
was like, oh, we're not just looking for Quinn Hughes and we're just going to throw it back to that guy. Like, we have to actually make what the best play is.
Right.
And it was fantastic. They don't score on the 5-on-3, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then Ottawa does get 2 scary late ones to make it close. But the Canucks kill off the last 44 seconds and escape with 2 points.
So did you see that whole Höglander Stützle encounter even on replay? I know neither of us watched the game live. Did you see it a little bit?
I saw him get ridden into the boards.
Yeah. And then
I didn't really see the aftermath.
Okay, so then he gets up and he basically starts pounding on Stützle, but they get roughing minors, Parker, not majors. But then, and I talked about this on my stream last night, we couldn't figure out, Höglander ends up getting the additional penalty, and that's why Ottawa goes on that power play and scores their second goal, right? Because they pulled their goalie, and now they're 2 men up on the Canucks, and that's how they scored to make it 4-2. So I don't know how Höglander got the extra. I don't know.
Yeah, much more dangerous play than the Quinn Hughes cross-check that he got kicked out of the game for. It's just, it was not a masterclass on the officiating front, let's just say.
Yeah. But no harm, no foul. Quinn Hughes not suspended, no fine. Obviously, no one's injured. And there's a Brady Tkachuk, Dakota Joshua fight too. So the third period was feisty, man. We both missed it, but a lot happened in the third period.
Yep. Yeah. So it's 2 points. Canucks are 10-6-3. So 23 points in 19 games. What's that? That is
99.
a 99-point pace right now. So
Yep.
it's fallen off a little bit, but they're still, doing just fine. Again, that's without Thatcher Demko. That's without JT Miller for some time, or for at least a game now, but perhaps a little bit longer. That's without Brock Besser for a bunch of games. That's with Elias Pettersson having a really bad start to the season, but obviously he has looked way better the last 2-3 weeks, which is fantastic to see. And that's why I'm feeling pretty optimistic about these next 4 games, right? Like looking at, I guess you can say next 5, we look at the whole road trip. It's weird scheduling wise, because really it's 4 games in the next 4 games in 6 days, right? If you include tomorrow all the way through Sunday. But it's 4 games in 6 days, with the first game starting at 4 p.m. and the last game starting at 9:30 a.m. So that's like 7 hours less rest, even in that. So it's like 4 games in 5 3/4 days or something. Like it's even tighter. It's a tough week on the schedule.
It is a tough week, and so. I know we're going to get into this next, Besser and Demko and their potential returns. There's one other thing I was going to say about Vancouver, Ottawa, just before we wrap it up. It'll come to me. But to your point about it's not really 4 and 6, it's like 4 and 5.5. And it's weird times for us to watch. People have to work or have school. And the Friday one's weird because it's American Thanksgiving weekend. Then Sunday's weird because it's American Thanksgiving weekend. There's some weird times, man. Like 4-4. 12 and 9:30, right? That's the next 4.
4:30, 12, and 9:30. Yeah, so all different times. And then the last game against the Wilds at 5. So the next 5 games are all at different times somehow, even though 4 of them are in the same time zone. It's very bizarre, and I don't like it. Like Friday at noon, I have work, and Sunday at 9:30, the Seahawks play at 10. And
Oh, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna
They had a
do?
big weekend, right? Like we
Yeah.
gotta get some screens going here. That's too early to have to be dual screening, I think, but we'll have to make it work.
We'll make it work. Yeah, first world problems for sure. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. If the Canucks, you talked about 99-point pace, which isn't great, but it's not bad considering, as you said, all the drama that we've gone through. But we beat Boston tomorrow. If we do, then we're shoots up to 125 and 20 and 103-point pace. So, which is kind of what you and I both predicted at the start of the year. And
But if they lose,
yeah, then down to 9. Yeah. They're not going to lose. They're not going to lose. We're not going to lose against Lindholm and Zadorov, are we?
well, look, so Boston, obviously biggest news story really in the last week is Jim Montgomery getting fired because Boston's off to that slow start, right? They were 8-9-3. And Jim Montgomery, again, has been one of the best coaches in the league for the past couple of years. Obviously, like we said last week, we've been waiting on the downfall of the Bruins, and it feels like it's finally coming. But now they go out, they fire their coach, they bring in the new guy whose name I don't remember.
Sacco. It sounds like Sakic.
Yeah, I knew it's over the next. That's all I had.
Yeah.
But they come out, they beat Utah 1-0 on Thursday. They beat Detroit 2-1 on Saturday. So two not fantastic teams, right? But very tight games. After, remember, we talked about they allowed 5 goals to Columbus. They allowed 7 goals to Dallas, 4 to Toronto. Like they 8 to Carolina in the past month, right? Like they've been really getting shelled in their own end. And then they come out and have sort of, allow 1 goal in 2 games. So, the Canucks have the offense to break through something like that. Obviously not having Miller is an impact, but we might see Brock Besser tomorrow, which would be very nice for a game like that against a team that's playing decently defensively for at least the last 2 nights. It's a hard one to put on paper. You have a team that, their record's not great, but they're 2-0 under this new coach.
Well, yeah. Did you say? Sorry, I was just thinking that. Did you say that they only allowed 1 goal in the last 2 games?
Yeah.
Did you say that? Yeah. That's pretty. So I don't remember Sacco. He's like I recognize the name, so he must have played somewhere for a while, but he wasn't amazing. I don't. I know. Okay, I'll just admit it. I know nothing about him.
Joe. Oh, it is also Joe. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's like Joe
Sacco. He played 738 games.
Yeah, but how many points? I'm guessing 200.
94 goals, 119 assists, so just over 200.
Okay.
So 25-point player or so.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, obviously it's not an automatic win, especially because we're playing in Boston. We never seem to play well. I remember last year I was watching Canucks in Boston, and they got pumped pretty good. So, but coming off a feisty win, a character win. Boston's still struggling to find their game, but you're right, much improved under Joe Sacco. So it should be good. I know we'll save our predictions to the end, but not a guaranteed win. But I would like to see, and it has nothing to do with Lindholm and Zadorov. They were here for a cup of coffee, really. But DeBrusk and Heinen, and Forbort to a lesser extent, I'm not sure if he gets in. DeBrusk and Heinen are going to want to have a good game as well. So should be good. Should be entertaining.
Absolutely. I'm trying to pull up what the odds show for tomorrow. It's pretty even.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So the odds makers have the Bruins as slight favorites, which makes sense. They're at home and have won 2 straight. But it's so close to a toss up that, yeah. So that's where the market has it. And they go back to back. They play Wednesday, 4:30 in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a bit of a mess right now. They have lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their last 7. Having recently lost on Saturday 6-1 to Utah, 4-1 to the Jets before that, 3-2 to the Lightning. They beat the Sharks 4-3, but then they lost 6-2 to Columbus, 3-2 to Detroit, 7-1 to Dallas. They had beat the Capitals 4-2. Before that, they lost 5-1 to Carolina. So they're losing to bad teams, or losing to good teams, and struggling against some bad teams as well. Not like Utah's terrible, but they're not fantastic either. So the big thing for Pittsburgh on this one is going to be rest. They will not play between that Saturday game and Wednesday. So they'll have 3 full days of rest, all of them at home. as they've been on this is the last game of a 5-game homestand for them. Again, though, 3 straight losses. Some good teams in there, though. Tampa and Winnipeg, but yeah, getting shelled by Utah, although it was the second night of a back-to-back. It's, Pittsburgh is struggling, though. They are bottom of the Metro, 7, 12, and 4 with just 18 points, a minus 34 goal differential. And like I said, have won just 2 of their last 10, which is no other team has won less than 3 of their last 10. So they are right now the worst team in hockey.
Do you feel bad for Sid?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have to stay there. It's one of those things where it's like he's obviously never going to play anywhere else, and it's hard to maintain a good team for someone's entire career, right? We saw it with the Sedins. We see it with everyone who's really ever played, right? Except, there's very few exceptions. So yeah, it's not super surprising that they're struggling, but yeah, you can tell that I think he thought the team was going to be a little bit better. And obviously they have not been.
Yeah. Between him, like you look at the veterans on the team, him, Letang, Malkin, and I guess Carlson are the big ones. I'm sure I'm missing a few. Then they're talking on the radio today. I haven't looked it up. Apparently so many of their players are UFAs after this season. So that will be interesting as well. So do you blow it up now and just start to, and someone asked in the chat, are they rebuilding? They should. There's no way they're going to, I guess if you have Crosby and Malkin, Letang, Carlson, you can always hope to put a little bit of a run together, but do they have enough depth behind those guys? I don't know.
Yeah. Like they have good players, right? Yeah. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, Anthony Beauvillier, to name a few, Michael Bunting. Guys like Marcus Pettersson, right? Really good top 4 right shot defenseman. Ricard Raquel, who's, maybe on the tail end, but still, a decent player. Brian Rust has had a few good years as well. Yeah. They've got some good players, but I think they need a coaching change. That trigger has to be pulled. Which I'm shocked it hasn't been yet. And then maybe they just do that and see where it goes from there. Like looking at this game tomorrow, if the Canucks blow the Penguins, or on Wednesday, if the Canucks blow the Penguins out, that's the night that, just like how Pittsburgh ended the Jim Benning, Travis Green era for us, maybe we can do the same for them on Wednesday.
Canucks, coach killers. And then we have the early morning game on Friday. Sorry, but it's not as early as Sunday. So the sort of early game on Friday.
Yes, the noon start, local, 3 p.m. local, noon for us. Obviously, it's Black Friday. Most people in the States have the Thursday, and they take the Friday, because if you have a Thursday holiday, you should take the Friday off. Yes. So there's, noon on Friday against Buffalo. Buffalo is okay this year, 11-9-1. There's really a lot of teams starting out the season in the middle. Right. And we saw it in the Pacific, what we mentioned, there's sort of five teams in that mushy middle. The Central's a bit of an exception. There's a lot of highs and lows, but the Atlantic, there's quite a few teams, right? Like the Panthers are second in the division at 12-9-1. The Senators are seventh in the division at 9-11-1, right? It's not many points between them. So they're in a very similar scenario where they've won 3 in a row, 7 of their last 10, including, some wins. Oh, wow. It just completely moved. They beat the Sharks, the Ducks, and the Kings in their last 3 games. Cause they just did their California trip. So not super hard teams, but they cleaned up that trip. They're a fine team, and it's not going to be, again, it's going to be pretty similar, I think, to the Bruins, right? They're very similar teams record wise. The Sabres will probably be slight favorites because they're at home. So none of these games are really to be taken for granted, but like I said, they're all winnable.
It's funny. When I mentioned Parker 20 minutes ago, remember I was making that comparison between the 3 teams of Buffalo, Detroit, and Ottawa. And it was more coincidence. It's not like I'm so smart. I forgot. I didn't say that knowing that we we're going to preview a Buffalo game and Detroit game. I always lump those 3 teams together because they're kind of all in the same spot. But Buffalo, you're right, is of the three of them is probably going to be the toughest test because they are, they're over 500. Like you said, they've won their last three, beating a couple of decent teams. This team's interesting too. Like all these teams, every team has a few good players, and then it's really how does your depth and goaltending stand up. But you're right, this is the one. Yeah, this one could be tricky. You're more like the Boston game than the Pittsburgh or the Detroit game. I agree with you that way. And Friday at noon, that's gonna be a tough one for me too. But we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll try to make it work. Might just be a PVR and then try your best to avoid, but I'm terrible at that.
Me too.
And then
especially when they win. Yep.
Sunday, 9:30 a.m. start for us. Are they doing like a super Sunday though? Why would there be? Are there a lot of games on Sunday? Why does this one have to be so early?
Good question.
Let's look at Sunday. There's 5 games on Sunday.
And
so
then we're the only
trying to do hockey all day type of idea. So they got Canucks and Red Wings at 9:30, Habs Bruins at noon, Blue Jackets Chicago at noon. So they sort of said, hey, you guys can play while everyone's watching Habs Bruins. Jets and Stars at 1:30, and then Senators in Anaheim at 5. So very like no one is playing at a reasonable time.
And no one's playing at 7:00 Pacific or 7:00 Eastern.
Local. No one's playing. No one's playing local, at night local time. Really, right? Like the Bruins are playing at noon their time. Chicago's playing at 1 p.m. their time. Dallas is playing at 2:30 p.m. there or 3:30 p.m. their time. Anaheim is playing at 5 p.m. their time. Very weird scheduling. But maybe the Sunday Night Football is still, I guess, the Sens Ducks they don't care about maybe, but yeah, very weird scheduling on the Sunday.
Yeah. It just means, as you mentioned off the top of the show, you are going to have to figure out which team draws your attention more, the Canucks or the Seahawks. For me, it's a no-brainer because I understand NFL, but I'm not as big a fan as you, so I'll be glued on the Canucks.
Yeah, I care about the Canucks more, but 82 games versus 17,
right?
That makes the math a little bit tougher.
Yeah, one team fighting to win a division with 5 games remaining versus a team that's not even quarter way. I get it.
Yeah. So that's the week really. So 4 games.
4 games.
A back-to-back, and back-to-backs are statistically not good for the team on the back-to-back, especially because the Penguins are having a bunch of days of rest, but the Penguins are struggling a lot. Who do we think gets the net these 2 games?
Good question. Okay.
Because I think, are we saying that you're playing Lankinen in 3 of these games?
Well, definitely the first one. I think you go Lankinen against. If you think that Boston is a stronger team, I go Lankinen. Yeah, I go Lankinen than Shilov's. Like for sure, they're splitting those for sure.
Yeah. And
then because of the early start on the Sunday, Parker, I would not be surprised if it goes Lankinen, Shilov's. But or does it go Lankinen, Shilov's, Lankinen, Demko?
Now that could be interesting. And again, we did say you want Demko. You don't want Demko to come back against an Edmonton, right? You don't want that to be his first game back. You want his first game back to be in Ottawa or maybe a Pittsburgh, maybe a Buffalo or a Detroit, or maybe a Columbus next Friday. You don't want him coming back against Florida or Colorado or Vegas or Edmonton, right? Those are not how you want to get your star goalie back into game action. So I wouldn't hate that if they could pull it off. We'll see. We'll see what we saw him skating hard at practice.
Yeah. Or do you think? Because why would you bring him? I get the value of being around the team, but why would you drag him on 6 flights if he's not going to play? So could it be?
He's been on every road trip so far.
Oh, that's true. So maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's Lankinen, Shilov's, Demko in Minnesota to end off, and then Demko at home at Columbus. Yeah, I don't know.
Hopefully he's back soon enough that actually matters.
Okay, I'm going to declare my prediction. You can do whatever you want. I'm declaring 2-1-1. Yeah, I want them to be 4-0, but it never happens. I'm going 2-1-1.
Wow, interesting. That seems I mean, 2 wins, 2 losses is where you essentially have it. And I think all of these games, like Canucks Boston, I think is pretty much a toss up. Canucks Penguins, second night of a back-to-back against a bad team, that probably averages out pretty close to a toss up. Canucks Sabres in Buffalo at a weird start time feels like a trap game. I'd call it a toss up, right? Canucks Red Wings, I think the Canucks win that one. So, so you math all that together, 2-1's pretty close. I'll be optimistic and I'll say 3-1.
Love it.
Because I think they beat Boston. I think they lose one of Pittsburgh or Buffalo, but I don't know which. And then I think they beat the Red Wings. And I think they need a good little run. Like this team's one of the best teams in the league when it comes to road victories, right? Like they can't win at home. They're electric on the road. Hopefully they can, just keep building off that. Because hey, half your games are on the road. So if you're good at one or the other, as long as you're good at one of them, I guess.
Yeah. So even with my pessimistic 2-1-1, they did beat Ottawa, so that means they're 3-1-1. And then even if they lose to Minnesota, which I think is fair because Minnesota's a really good team. So even if the Canucks end off 3-2-1, 7 out of 12 points, that's okay. I want them to get 8. I basically want them to do the reverse, Parker, of what they did in the homestand, right? They lost 4 out of 6. I do want them to win outright 4 of the 6. So 7 or 8 points would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as long as if you're just staying at around 100-point pace until your elite goaltender comes back, and without JT Miller, like I think you're okay, right? And really, it's as long as we just keep seeing Pettersson play really well. If we keep seeing, obviously DeBrusk's very streaky, right? But he scored 2 goals in the last game, so he should be in a little streak right now. So we see a couple goals in the next couple of games, and then he'll tail off for a couple of weeks. But I really want to see Brandstrom get some more ice time, especially, with back-to-backs, right? You're going to have to even out that ice time quite a bit. Hughes did get a night off for the most part, so maybe he's going to play 28 minutes every night anyways. But I'm interested to see how they work time on ice. Sure. Look, in a perfect world, you blow out one of these games, right? And you can roll some lines, but when you have this many games this tight, fatigue's going to be a factor, especially since you're traveling to all 5 of them essentially. With no breaks until that Tuesday night when they'll fly home. It's you really want to have a big win that you can rest some guys, but they're going to have to manage the ice time a little bit more than they have so far, where they've been playing really once every 2.5 nights on average. And you can throw Quinn Hughes out there for 27 minutes a night. He never looks like he's tired.
Good. Yeah.
And you can run Kevin Lankinen 85% of the games because they're not playing that often. So this is, it starts to get, they're starting to really get into the flow now. We'll see how they handle it.
We're not as optimistic as Alfred though. 6-0, $6 for 6-0. Thank you, Alfred, for the generous donation. That is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Alfred's not sweating it. Yeah. That's what he said. He's not sweating.
I hope you're right. I'm not the most optimistic, but, if you are, you could have, again, don't want to promote gambling, but if you are that confident they'll go 6-0, your $6 could have gone a bit farther going that way.
That's true.
That's fine. Thank you.
That's true. Hey, Justin, just before, I know we're going to get into people in a sec, but I would say the one team that isn't floundering is Vegas, because they're got a good points percentage, playing very well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're, everyone in the Pacific really has won 5 or 6 of their last 10. Except for obviously Anaheim, Detroit, or Anaheim, San Jose. I don't know where Detroit came from. But you look at the last 10s for everyone. Vegas 6-3-1, Flames 6-2-2, Kings 5-5, Oilers 5-4-1, Canucks 6-4, Kraken 6-4. So every team is just doing slightly above average right now, and is just sort of flowing. No one's really running away with it. Like we said, Vegas is a little bit, but a good road trip, and the Canucks are right back, close to them, and teams can fall apart, right? Vegas, you know what Vegas's next 2 games are? They're Colorado and Winnipeg.
Oh,
and they have Utah, and then they have Edmonton, right? So they've got, and then they play Anaheim. That's a free win. But then they go Stars, Jets, Oilers. So the Golden Knights are in a tough stretch of their schedule right now.
Good.
Well, they do have a 6-day break in the middle of that.
Bad.
But it's it's still early, right? We're a quarter of the way through the season right now. There's a lot of time for things to shake up.
Lightning beat Colorado 8-2 tonight. Was that like a 2022 revenge game, I guess? from the.
That does sound like a Colorado hockey game. Ivan
Okay.
Ivan with 2 goals though,
Yeah.
and Brandon Hagel with 5 assists.
Unbelievable. Okay, so before we get to the people, which we promised last week we would, even though we miraculously found a way to fill 45 minutes pretty easy, we should probably talk about Brock Besser for a couple of minutes. Now, Parker, I want your thoughts on this. Brock Besser plays in a non-contact, so a regular practice jersey today. We did not get full line rushes, but it was loud and clear that if he does play tomorrow, if he's fine tonight, if he wakes up fine tomorrow, no symptoms, no nothing, no soreness, both him and Tocchet said he'll be in tomorrow. And he'll likely play with Blueger and Heinen on a second or third line. You keep Petey with Sherwood and DeBrusque because they're great. You keep Suter between Garland and Joshua, and what do you call that? Line 2 or line 3. And then you have Besser taking Hoglander's spot with Heinen and Suter. And that means it's either Hoglander, Ratu, Baines, or Sasson. One of those guys got to sit. So forget about that for a second. Are you fine? Does it make sense whether you're easing him in or maybe you're simply not wanting to break up the top line? Are you fine with Besser playing with Heinen and Blueger in his return game?
I think so. And looking at really, man, not having JT Miller in that lineup, really like you look, okay, DeBrusque, Pettersson, and Sherwood. Okay, that's okay first line, really. Joshua, Suter, Garland, that's an okay second line, right? Garland, Joshua are great, but they're like really good third liners, low end second liners, right? At least Joshua, especially as he's easing back. Suter, I think, is sort of a middle 6. Garland's middle 6. They're all middle 6 guys. And then Blueger, Heinen, and Besser is like it doesn't feel as well structured as it does with JT Miller in there, right? Because it bumps Suter down, it moves everything around, and it really feels like, hey, you have a line 1, which is going to be Pettersson, DeBrusque, and Sherwood. Which, if we said Kiefer Sherwood was getting first line minutes at the beginning of the season, we'd think things are going terribly wrong. But he's just been fantastic, and then you really sort of get like a 2A 2B scenario, right? Suter, Garland, Joshua. And then, Besser with seemingly, Blueger and Heinen, which I would say is, like and again, a middle 6 line, I think, for both of those. I think it's a fine move. I don't think you want to mess with what DeBrusque, Pettersson, and Sherwood are doing right now. They've been, especially analytically, they've been the Canucks' best line lately. Joshua, Suter, Garland is, just a problem for other teams. Yep. And then, really, Besser easing back after an injury, I don't think you want to disrupt anything. So I think putting him with Blueger and Heinen is totally fine. And then, you have a decision to make on who comes out. Because, right, you slide Hoglander down, and now you have Ratu, Baines, Sasson, and Hoglander fighting for 3 spots. All of which are left-handed, by the way, which adds a little bit of a wrinkle. So,
right. Yeah. Well, you keep Ratu in because he's the center. So really, it's Hoglander, Baines, and Sasson fighting for. Well, I guess Sasson can play in the middle too, but you're not gonna sit Ratu for Sasson. You might sit Baines or Hoglander even for Sasson, which I'd have no problem with, to be honest.
No, I really could take or leave anyone out of those 3. Whoever you had to pull out, I'd be fine with. Hoglander has struggled and Baines has struggled, right? That's where I'm looking at like Sasson. He's played 8 minutes and he was fine in those 8 minutes. He got a point. I don't think you take him out right now because I don't like Baines again, 10 games, a single goal, right? And maybe he should have had 2, but there was, an offside or something like that. But like Baines hasn't really produced anything in the last little while. And I think Hoglander really brings more to the lineup than Baines does. And I don't think that should be a hot take. He should bring more to the lineup than Baines does. However, it also could be a Rick Tocchet wanting to sit him for a game to see if he can get him right. And I wouldn't hate that as an idea either. So if I had to predict it, I think Baines comes out.
Me too. Yeah. You can play, Sasson on the left, Hoglander on the right, as he's been doing. So I'm with that. I'd be fine with that as well. Wait, is Forbert coming back?
I think he's close.
Okay. It's okay as long as we sound good. My show lags is weird on my own show, Parker. 40 minutes in, no matter what I'm doing, no matter how good my connection is, I'll start to look like a potato.
Weird. Yeah, I've got so many issues with my camera right now that I don't even know where to start.
It's fine.
Yeah,
we match.
I feel like I saw that Forbert was close.
I
but
heard
I
that
can't
too.
find it now.
Yeah, I've heard that from people as well, but I don't know how like who are you putting in for? Are you moving Branstrom to the right and you're chucking Juleson and Desharnais? Like could you see them going Hughes, Hronek, back to Susie Myers and then Forbert Branstrom, or do you keep do you keep Branstrom with Myers and then Susie and put Forbert on the right? That doesn't sound right. I
I
don't know
think
what
you
they're gonna
got
do.
to split Susie and Myers up for at least a
Okay.
game and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
Because neither of them together, they've just been struggling.
Yeah.
So I would love to, yeah, throw Branstrom and Myers together, put
Yep.
Susie with Juleson or Forbert or whatever you want to do, and just get a fresh look defensively.
Sure.
Because we know that first pair is not the problem, and right now the third pair is not really the problem either. It's just those two in the middle. So either you split them up and all of your problems are solved, or you split them up and now both of your bottom two pairings are a disaster. Who knows? Let's find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Good. So you're saying 3-1. I'm saying 2-1-1. We'll see what defense pairs line up. And I guess all that's left is for us to go to the people for 10 minutes. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's go. Put your comments in the chat. 300 people in here, which is great. 100 watching on YouTube, another 200 combined on X. So that's pretty good. Thanks everyone for easier for us to address your questions though if you ask them in YouTube and not on X. Although we appreciate everyone watching on that one as well.
Absolutely.
What do we got?
Sherez says, would you rather a team with a good road record and bad home record, or vice versa? I think you obviously want the good home record, right? Because we go to games sometimes.
Yeah, it's really funny. I didn't even think about the viewer experience. I thought I was gonna say I'm fine for regular season, a good road record, because but the whole point, the whole reason why you want to finish higher than the team you're playing against is because of that game 7. And I know it didn't work for Canucks versus Edmonton, but that's the whole point of home ice advantage is to finish higher than the other team. So I would agree with you, Parker. The home record because of that, and the fact that we're paying to watch some of these games.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Edmund, do you think DeBrus will continue his streakiness this whole road trip? He plays better on the road than at home. Yeah, I don't think he has a goal at home yet this year.
That's not very surprising. I don't think the Canucks have as many goals at home as they do on the road. Yeah, it's interesting because he is so streaky, right? His 5 goals have really come in 2 bunches, right? Where he had 3 goals in like 2 games, and then he scored 2 goals last game. So I if he can just have a run on this road trip, that's great. The home goals will come, right? Like it's not like Rogers Arena, his game doesn't work. That's not going to be the case. I'm not too concerned about that in the long run.
Sure. Great question from Peter. This is from 10 minutes ago. Has PD finally found his wingers in DeBrusk and Sherwood? And why do you think Tocchet broke up DeBrusk and PD 2 games in the season?
I struggle to say that Elias Pettersson has found one of his wingers in Kiefer Sherwood.
Yeah, I agree.
Kiefer Sherwood's been great, but he is like he's not supposed to be your long-term first line right winger, right? Like that's just not the way it should be. DeBrusk, that's what DeBrusk should be. DeBrusk should be a top 6 winger, and that's either with Pettersson or with Miller, no other option. If he's playing well. So that worries me, but for now, if it's working, you keep using it and look, there's stories of players who come out of nowhere, right? And play well on a first line, and that's great. And if that's what Sherwood ends up being at $1.5 million, sure, I'll take it. I'll let you jump on that first question before we go to the second half.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think PD and DeBrusk make sense, and I think Sherwood is a great story, but for the sake of the team, you need a Besser in that spot. You need someone else in that spot. Having said that, right now there's no one else in that spot because there's no Besser and JT Miller. You can see just how much weaker the line, as you mentioned, Parker, how much weaker the lineup looks. For that second part, I was surprised because as we know, the season started with Miller, Besser, DeBrusk, and then Miller, Besser, and Suter, and then PD with DeBrusk and Sprong. And I was hopeful for that. Worried about Sprong's defense, but talk went away from that after 2 games, and I guess you got to look at the way we lost that Calgary game, maybe, and maybe they didn't like the way, maybe he didn't like the way that the trio was playing defensively. But I do think Tocchet is pretty quick to switch his lines, and I would love to see a longer runway at the start of the season for sure.
Yeah, we saw it all last year, right? Remember, this is a team that was on an absolute tear last year, right? 109-point team. How many times did we see the lines get changed game to game? A ton,
Yeah.
right? Like there was one line that was a constant, right? And that was Joshua with Garland and Bluger. Like that line was a constant. Everything else was in the blender constantly all year long, and it worked out. It worked just fine. D pairings stay the same, but everything else changes. I think they changed it so early because they just didn't look good together in the first 2 games, right?
No, it's true.
And it was like
I remember a lot of that was Petey, not yes.
Yeah, Pettersson didn't play good the first couple of games, and DeBrusk wasn't really elevating him in any way, which it shouldn't be his job to do, frankly. But I think he just said, "Okay, let's try something new and see what happens."
Yeah, Edmund, I'll address this one really fast because we actually talked about it at the tail end of our previews. Parker and I both said we could see him getting in either that Detroit game on Sunday or the Minnesota game on Tuesday before they get returned home. Yeah, but we'll see. We don't know for sure.
I think once he's ready and you're 100% confident that, obviously you'd never be 100% confident, but you're very confident that he's not at a risk of re-injury, then I think you get him in whenever you can, because every game is going to count down the stretch, right? Like, again, we're a team that's on a 99-point pace right now. We're not on a 110-point pace. If we think that playoff bar is going to be 94, 95, you're a 3-game losing streak away from being behind pace, really, right?
Right.
So every Demko start that you can get might be nice going down the stretch. I'm not worried that this team's going to miss the playoffs. It's obviously possible. But I think, as soon as you can get Demko back, I think, you should give him a game and see how he's looking.
Right. Starts off with Whitecaps because Vanni Sartini was fired by the Whitecaps. But the question is, do you think if the Canucks miss the playoffs or fail to win around, that Tocchet could be a borrowed time as well? And this one's interesting because Tocchet doesn't have a contract for next year. But I don't hear people talking him as a lame duck coach like they did for Bruce Boudreau, right? It's kind of weird how I guess people see things. But he definitely. I was at that Q&A with him 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and he said he didn't have a contract.
Yeah, this isn't. I think it's a much different situation because of how last year went, and because it's also the first coach that this management group has hired, right?
Yeah.
We know that they weren't the ones that hired Boudreau. It was essentially the ownership that went straight to him. Look, the Tocchet style of hockey has been shown to work, right? At least in year one. And frankly, he hasn't really done anything to make me doubt him in his entire tenure here so far. Yeah. I think a lot would have to go wrong. Like, I think if this team finishes the year with like 85 points, then I think I think they might just be like, hey, we're just gonna move on because that, like, we can't have that much of a regression. But if they finish with 100 points and finish third in the Pacific and make it to the second round again, like, I don't think that's I don't think that's move on from coach time, right? I think that's, hey, we have a team that has only been in the playoffs once, really, right? I'm not including the bubble because half the guys weren't there and it doesn't really count. It's I don't see that happening at all unless things go horribly, horribly wrong.
I agree with you. Thank you, Carol, for declaring your support for the last 2 years. That is amazing. We appreciate that. Timmy has an interesting question. What do you think of Joshua since he's been back? So Timmy says he's been horrible. That's a little strong, but since his return, I know he was sick, but well, more than sick, but no excuses. This is pro sport. So commentary, editorial side, Joshua, I agree, has not been that effective just yet. And obviously he's coming back from a very tumultuous summer, but I'd like to see a bit more from him, admittedly.
Yeah, he looks a little slow. But you got to imagine, like, how's your cardio going to be after seemingly like not being able to work out for most of the off season, right? Not being able to, like, what you're going to get on the bike after having testicular cancer surgery? Like probably not, right? That sounds miserable. Yeah. I'm sure his cardio is not where he wants it to be.
Sure.
I'm not gonna get too concerned until we're a good 15 games from now. He missed all of camp. He missed all of preseason. He missed the first 10, 12, 15 games of the year, whatever the number was. I think he's been not great, but I don't know many players that would be as good as he was last year after a summer like that.
I agree. Let's end with this one. Great question, because we kind of alluded to it. Are you worried about Höglander's declining minutes under Tocchet? Is his value depreciating, or do you think he'll be a trade chip? So remember, he just signed that 3-year, $9 million contract extension.
I'm not worried about his minutes. I'm worried about his production. I'm not worried. Like, I would be playing him less too, right? He's getting 11.5 minutes per game right now at 5-on-5, which is quite low. He's not producing anything when he was on power play 2. He scored 24 even strength goals last year. He's got 2 this year total. 2 total goals. He's on pace for 8.
Weird.
That's a huge decline year over year from where he was last year. He doesn't, he looks really good when he's battling in the offensive zone in the corner, but then he'll take a bad penalty. He's at 16. He's at 8 minor penalties already this year in 19 games. Right. I would be playing him less also, and he needs to work that out. He needs to earn those minutes. I think he knows that. Tocchet even said a couple games ago, that Höglander apologized to him. It's like, I'm not giving you my best. And I don't think this is a scenario where a guy's like, oh, the coach is being unfair to me. He's just not playing well. And that's something that he needs to improve.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with your assertion that I would not be surprised if it's our Sheep Baines who's sitting out tomorrow, but I would not be surprised if it's Höglander. We lack of production. It's a natural, especially if Tocchet liked the way that the all AHL line played last game, you could sit as you said, sit Hoggy for one game, have him kind of just feel the brunt of embarrassment, or that's too strong a word, of being benched for one game, and then maybe he comes back a little bit hungrier. But I would have no problem. I don't think it'd be like the craziest story ever if indeed Höglander sits tomorrow night.
Yep, I agree with that.
I'd be okay with it. Yeah.
All right, we should probably wrap up there because both of our cameras are collapsing. I'm freezing all the time. You're super blurry. It's turning into a mess. So we're gonna wrap up there. Thank you all very much for joining here on this Monday night. Like we said, next week we'll have 4 games to recap and a couple more to preview. So make sure you're subscribed, hit like, do all that good stuff while you're here. If you missed any part of the show, you can find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of 10-15 minutes or so. Clay, any parting words this evening?
Yeah, this one's interesting. I never pump or hype my own show on this because respectful of this, but I'll just say one thing. Timmy Canuck has said something in the chat that was quite interesting. A lot of feedback to it, and I didn't want to interrupt the flow here, but I'm going to address it on my show. So if you call that a teaser, a spoiler alert, or whatever, if anyone wants to come by, I'll be doing my own show at 11:15 in about 15 minutes from now. More importantly, for the Canucks, I'm looking forward to a chance for them to make up for their poor homestand with a good road trip and come back even 5 or 6 games over 500, and then we'd be in a really good spot coming out of Thanksgiving into December. So I'm hopeful, and I appreciate everyone today. It was a really good show today, and it went by really fast. That's why our cameras are breaking, because there's so much good content in the chat.
Absolutely, they're trying to silence us. It's too.
There
good.
You go.
All right, folks. Thank you all very much for joining. Have a good night, and we will see you next week.